Hey, 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 hey. It's breakfast with Bob.
Poncho Man, bringing it. We are presented by EA Sports Nutrition, Cliff Bar, Timex Roca, Tanyapura Resort, Rudy Project, Slow Twitch. Our next guest, 4-time Ironman World Champion in the Hand Cycle Division, former Navy SEAL, Mr. Carlos Moleda. Carlos, how the heck are you?
I'm doing well, Bob. Thanks for having me. Perfect morning.
Always a pleasure. So take us back. Becoming a Navy SEAL, because you weren't born in the U.S., correct?
No. I was actually born in Brazil, and as a teenager, I came to the U.S. for a world championship in skateboarding.
Oh, you were a skateboard
yeah,
guy?
I used to be a pro skateboarder. Yes.
Oh my God!
So I came here, back in the Tony Alva, Stacy Peralta kind of era.
Yes.
And so I went back home, and I told my mom, as soon as I can, I'm going to go back there and just live that life. And and that's what I did. I came back when I was 18 years old, and my thought was, I'm just going to go there and skate around and do my thing. But then, all of a sudden, you throw in a position where now you're an adult. You got to make a living, you got to go to work, got to go to school. And you didn't have your family near you to support you. So, I had to put those dreams aside and become a man really quick. Work hard. And eventually, it took me to the Navy because I wanted to be a deep sea diver. So when I joined the Navy, and as soon as I found out about the SEALs, I was like, that's what I want.
That's you.
It just hit a nerve, and that's me right there. So I took the test, and I failed the first test.
Really?
I failed the swim. And then so they sent me to the fleet, to the regular Navy fleet. And I said, I'm not going to give up. I learned how to swim, and I took the test, went to BUD/S, ended up going to SEAL training, and I was one of about 11 people out of 120 that actually finished training.
And then
it changed my life. It really changed the kind of person that I was. Going through SEAL training completely, reinvented who I was. I had no idea the things that I could do.
Yes, it gave you an identity.
Until I went through BUD/S.
Yeah.
I had no idea I can do this. Tie your hands behind your back and do all kinds of crazy stuff. And once I finished that, I was completely changed.
Everything. So, end up in Panama.
Yes. 1989, we invaded Panama, not because we were in war with Panama. We just had a mission. We had to go in and capture Manuel Noriega, bring him back to the U.S. for trial. But it was something that was, it was kind of hush-hush. Nobody knew about it other than us. The operation wasn't really, I couldn't call it well-organized. We learned a lot from Panama. A lot of mistakes were made. And make a long story short, during my operation, 4 of my teammates were killed.
Yes.
And
9 of us securing Noriega's plane.
So we were supposed to take charge of the airport, Patilha Airport, and just make sure that his plane couldn't take off.
Right.
Really, it could have been done in many ways, but because of rules of engagement, the kind of war the mission that we
sort
had,
of a halfway war.
Right. We couldn't go and just blow things up. We had to go, just hurt a little bit so it can't take off. So we had to get closer to the target. We couldn't shoot at anyone unless they were shooting at us first. So here we are, in front of a firing squad, pretty much pointing guns at us, and we're like, we're trying to tell them to please put your guns down, get out of here. And they said we're not going to have any of that. They opened fire on us. I was shot right away.
Yes.
And four of my friends also were shot right away, and they were killed. And I. From that minute, I went from being, in my head at least, I was a Superman. Nothing can hurt me.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, my life was completely changed.
And you're talking 1989.
Right.
There's not a
There
lot
was
of
nothing.
awareness in terms of being an athlete.
There was not a whole lot.
Yeah.
There was no hand cycling. There was no triathlon.
No.
There was, wheelchair basketball. That's the core of all of disabled, paraplegic kind of a sport.
Right.
And so in the hospital, I found myself, I wake up a few days later, the doctor comes in, can you move your leg? Can you move your leg? I said, no. And I'm thinking, okay, eventually I want to get better. I'll just go back to work in a couple of months, when I recover. And it wasn't to be. My legs never moved. One night a nurse came in and said, don't you worry, I know a lot of paraplegics, that play wheelchair basketball. And that's when it really sunk me, into me that I was a paraplegic. Wow. I have a label. I'm not the same guy anymore.
I'm not. In your mind,
right,
you weren't a Navy SEAL anymore.
Right. And that's what they said. You can't be a SEAL anymore. You can't swim. You can't walk. So everything that I had planned in my life completely
Gone.
You know, and so you have, you know, so I spent a lot of time in the hospital. Okay, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? And I was very fortunate that, you know, that sports came into my life, you know, through my therapy and my therapist. She introduced me to wheelchair racing. And the first time that I got, you know, into a racing chair, that's when the whole thing changed, because I was out of this thing.
Yes.
I knew that I wasn't going to be defined by my everyday chair. You know?
And you can race. You can
And I
be
could race. I mean, I
competitive.
was in a park, and, you know, wind is blowing. She said, if you do a 5K, you know, in a couple of weeks, I'll get your own chair. So I said, you're on.
Yeah.
So I got on that chair and I trained in the hallway. She used to take me to the track. I did a 5K, and it probably took him like a half hour,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and but I finished.
But you did it.
Yes, and she bought me my first chair. You know, the VA did, the government
Right.
did, and that's the beginning of the whole thing.
I remember you telling us that another Navy SEAL came to you in the hospital and said, Carlos, you're still a Navy SEAL.
Right. Yes. You know, I had actually the guys from my platoon. I was at Bethesda Naval Hospital, you know, recovering
Yeah.
and still going through the thoughts. Okay, what am I going to do now, man? You know, that was before rehab. And these guys came into my room talking to me, and they could see that I wasn't all there. And one guy actually had to walk out because, you know, I still had stuff all over
Right.
me. I mean, tubes and everything. And there was this guy, friend of mine, my buddy AJ. He came in, you know, and he brought me a trident, you know, which is the emblem that we earned once we become a SEAL. And he put that in my hand, you know, and he held on. He just whispered in my ear, said, Carlos, you know, don't let them forget who you are. You know, don't forget who you are. You're still a Navy SEAL. You're always going to be one. Don't let this, you know, change the person that you are. And he left,
Yes.
you know, and I was just there thinking, like, you know, AJ is right. You know, no one is going to hold my hand and take me out, you know, to the sunset and make your life easy. I was going to have to do it myself, you know, and that's pretty much the beginning of the whole thing.
What was the lowest part?
I think it's when you realize that you can't do the things that you could.
Right.
You know, that's when it really, all your hope is gone. I mean, everything, all your dreams are gone, and you have to, and you don't know, not knowing. Okay, what is it? I mean, what is it being
What's
in
my
a chair?
future?
Right. What's going to happen to me now? You know, I'm paralyzed. You know, in my mind, I see myself in a corner and drunk, you know, on drugs.
Sure.
You know, like, dude, there's nothing. I'm paralyzed. I mean, so, you know, the images that I had, you know, being in the hospital, and this is going to be horrible. And from that encounter with AJ, you know, things start to shift. And, you know, and I talked to there was another doctor. He was a former SEAL as well, and he became an MD. And I asked him, where is the best place that I can go for rehab? You know, someone that's really going to push me, get me ready to go back home and be ready to really face the world. And he said, you have to go to Seattle. You know, I know this girl there. You know, she's a physical therapist, Jennifer. And she's really gonna, you know,
she's gonna push you.
Yes, and she did. Her dad was a SEAL in Vietnam.
Ah.
So as soon as I came into the hospital, she was assigned to me, and she said, Carlos, get ready, dude. You know, you're gonna be a changed man by the time I'm done with you.
Now, when did you find triathlon? I mean, the first time we worked really hard to try to get a hand cycle division here in Kona, and Dr. John Franks came over in '94. Missed the bike cutoff time.
Right.
John McClain came over in '95, missed the bike cutoff time. It's '96, missed the bike cutoff time.
Yeah, that's.
And was that about the era where you started hearing about this?
'97. That's when. Yeah. I started reading about it.
Yeah.
When John Franks did, I said, you know, I can do that.
Yeah.
Anything that was a suffer fast man, I'll
want
sign up for it.
The harder it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I said that. I was talking to my wife. You know, I think I can do this. You know, I mean, there wasn't really any bikes out there, so I found a bike, and then it took a couple of years to get everything really worked out. And then in '97, which was the year that
John finally finished under all the cutoff times.
I went to the qualifier in Florida. In the morning of the race, you know, I get up, you know, I have my hand like this on my flank, and kidney stone.
Oh.
So I mean, my equipment, everything is at the transition. You know, ready for the morning, and I'm trying to decide, am I going to race her? Should I race her or not? And my wife like, dude, you got to go to the hospital. You know? So I ended up in the hospital for 3 days, and they had to do surgery and everything. And my equipment was at the finish line for like the entire day after the race.
Yes.
Because nobody knew who it was. I was in the hospital. My wife is over there. You know, we had a baby with us. My son Spencer.
Yes.
You know. So that was a huge disaster. So John came, finished. You know, well deserving. You know, and then the next year, which was '98, that was my first time here in Kona.
And at that time, the course nobody had gone under 11 hours. here.
No,
Yeah, because we were hopeful someone could finish the race. And
That
John
was-
McClain finished the race in 97. Then you came in 98, and that began the first of 3 amazing races.
That was unbelievable. Yeah.
You and David Bailey.
I
And,
think it changed
yeah,
that changed the whole view.
changed everything. 1, you went sub 11, but 2, it was 2 guys who want to kick the other guy's ass. It was
Right,
2
yeah.
great athletes, and
Yeah.
the chairs disappeared.
Gone. I mean,
Did you feel on race day you're the same as everybody else?
it did, especially when you're riding on the bike, and you have all the pros coming, and they give you the thumbs up and everything. So it's like you check your chair at the door, and you're no longer disabled. I mean, I got my machine here, I'm powering it.
I'm racing it. I'm like
racing,
everybody else.
I can't slow down. There's a guy chasing me. I'm chasing someone else. So it's it's all on the line, and we did that for 3 years in a row. We pushed each other, to a higher and higher level, and people saw that, and they forgot about the chair.
Yes.
It wasn't about those guys are disabled. No, those guys are racing, man.
It
They're
was the Navy SEAL
Right,
against the motocross guy.
right. It just happened they're in a chair.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I think because of that, that took front stage, and people really, start watching this thing develop.
Yes.
And I think it brought a lot of good to the sport.
No
I think
question.
it brought a lot of good to to the we call it the able-bodied community, because most of the sports that are related to physically challenged athletes usually stay within that community, and
They're not intermingled.
Right.
We don't have athletes, able-bodied athletes competing with
no, yeah,
challenge athletes.
right? And something as big as Ironman, when we had 2 guys there, they're disabled. The masses around the world, was able to watch it. I mean, I went to Europe, I went to Cuba, and people knew who I was from Ironman.
watching the Ironman
Yeah, I
show.
saw you in Ironman, man. This is great. I mean, Australia and in Europe, so it's worldwide, and I think that changed the whole view, especially within the triathlon community.
No question. And the cool part was you guys really wanted to kill each other. I mean,
Yeah.
on race day,
No, we were the best friends.
you could be best friends,
No,
but
yeah.
it was like you beat him in you beat
98,
him
99.
99.
Yeah.
It came to 2000. I remember you and I before the race. I said, for some reason, I have a gut that's going to be close.
It's gonna be close.
And you said to me, it's going to be over on the first climb, Papalani.
Yeah.
And you went by David, like David said, you went by him like you were on a moped, and you were gone. And he was like, okay, this race is over. But then coming back, he
He
caught.
called me on the bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you get I had this in the bag.
Right.
I'm just gonna bike here,
Yeah,
get
yeah.
the transition. It was all
Yeah,
here.
sure.
And then I think it was by the airport.
Yes.
Or maybe the
Yeah.
energy lab. I'm biking, and then all of a sudden here comes David passing me, and I'm like, oh my
in
god.
your in your event, you're the
Okay,
cyclist.
I'm the bike.
Yeah.
I'm the bike guy. And here he comes. I mean, he was just like he was
Look
eating a cookie.
like butter.
Right.
You look
And
good.
I gotta stay with this guy. Otherwise it's gonna be really
Yeah.
bad. So we kept on going and got into town. We made a left at that hot corner, and he had a flat. So he threw his arm up in the air because he was having a good race, and he did not need that stuff. So I saw it. People think I didn't stop. I said I'm gonna stop and wait for him. No, I just said, dude, we just stay together.
Yes.
Because I was hurting too, dude. I was
Yeah,
he
yeah.
put a hurt on me because he came strong, and I stayed with this guy. And so we made it to the transition. I got in my racing chair, and I went out like a madman. I mean, I was hammering. I had a huge gap on him, which was my mistake. And I wasn't eating, I wasn't drinking. I was just worrying about I gotta put a
I got to
huge-
put a gap so he
Yes.
can't catch me. And then
Big
I saw
mistake.
you guys. And David, when he went through town, again, it looked like he was going to lose. Mom and
crying.
wife are giving him the golf clap, sort of like, nice try, honey. Good job, right?
Yes.
And then he gets out to the energy lab, and he's like, at that point, it went from 5 minutes to 4 minutes to 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and going into the lab, and then seeing you guys come out, all of a sudden he's right
We're
there.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, you're together. He goes by, and you can see the guy losing it emotionally.
And he said, "Come on with me."
Yeah.
I said, "Dude, I can't. I
Yeah.
have nothing." We went down energy lab. When I turned around, he was
Right
coming
there, yeah.
towards me.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, he's coming." And as soon as I got to the top of the energy lab, I mean, a bear just jumped on my back. And I said, "Bam! You're not going anywhere, dude." That's when he just came by, and I think once he did that, I mean, the adrenaline
confidence.
just pumped,
Yeah.
and he just hammered. I mean, I can see his arm is just flailing, and then like, there's no way I'm gonna keep up with this
Yeah.
guy. I said, David, just
all
go,
yours.
dude. I'm done, man.
So he comes down the stretch. I remember grabbing Gina and getting her into the finish chute so that she could greet David. And I said, "Do you want to go get a massage?" And he's like, "No, I need to wait for Carlos."
Oh, that was awesome.
And he
man.
waited for you. and I could see him whisper something to you.
Yeah.
And I was like, then I came to you and said, what did he say?
Yeah. I mean, one, I said, when I came in, I told him that was all his.
Right.
It was all him. I mean, and he said that, as I can remember, that I push him, to the hardest.
What was cool is he said, first 3 words, he said, thank you.
Uh-huh.
And you were like, thank you. Sort of like, what does that mean? Yeah, thank you. He said, thank you for pushing me to a level that I never reached on my own. And to me, what was great about that, it wasn't, again, about 2 wheelchair guys. It was 2 athletes at the top of their game who needed the other guy to get to the best level, right?
Yeah.
You guys wouldn't have reached the levels you left.
And it worked both ways, and together, we changed the whole thing.
You changed the world.
You
changed it all.
More athletes came in, they learned from what we did. I mean, the times got faster.
Yes.
People
equipment got better.
Got better, much better, And so I feel that I'm very, very fortunate to be part of this whole thing. I mean, the Ironman itself changed my life.
Yes.
After the first time that I came here, it really opened the door for my for my sporting career. Really, Ironman was, the spark that started the whole thing. And since '98, I mean, I've been involved with CAF, the Challenge Athletes Foundation, because of triathlon. And I started a business because of triathlon. I've been able to meet people and do things, be places that I would have never done in my life, if I was able-bodied, and it made my life, mean so much more, to myself, to my family, to my wife. So I'm very, very fortunate.
You're now 50.
52.
52.
Yeah.
And the goal is here to go faster than you've ever gone before.
I ever gone before, personally. Yeah, if it brings me a victory, awesome. If it doesn't, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I don't really have to come here and have to prove that I'm fast.
You got 4. What's 5? What's big deal?
The fun of it is I can come, I can race as hard as I want, as I can, and I have my own personal goal, which is to go under 10 hours. If I come in at 9:59, I'll be drinking champagne at the finish line.
Love it.
I'll be happy, But if I don't, it's fine. I mean, my family's here, my sister are here watching. They've been part of this whole journey with me from the beginning. I did the training. I'm ready to come and race again. Age itself, it means nothing. No, I'm faster now than I was when I came here and when I was younger. Because my training is more specific and more efficient. I have a coach that tells me what to do and what not to do. So it made a huge difference.
At the end of the day, you're still a Navy SEAL.
Right. In my heart, yes. And I finished the Ironman. What else do I want?
Exactly.
Life is good.
Thanks so much for taking time.
Thanks,
buddy.
Bob.
Carlos Moleda has been our guest. We are presented by EAS Sports Nutrition, Cliff Bar, Timex, Roca, Tanya Porter Resort, Rudy Project, and Slow Twitch, and Pancho. Man.
Oh. Hey, 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 hey. It's breakfast with Bob. Oh, yeah. Aloha Thursday. Yeah, my man.